This is Charlie Parsons for Boxing Social in association with William Hill and Empire Fight Store. Frank, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm a little bit disappointed, and it is no one's fault. But obviously, I've heard about the plans for Friday. I will not announce them. Um, do you even know the plans for Friday?
This Friday.
Yeah.
I'm aware. What are you disappointed about? You've not been invited.
No, I'm in Spain.
Then that's why you're disappointed.
I'm not disappointed because Spain's fun, but also to do that on Friday when I've never done anything like that with you guys before, it's a bit peak to miss out, isn't it?
I'm sorry, mate. I'm sorry. Do you want me to get it rearranged for you for a
That would
date
be
that works?
really if you could,
Yeah.
I would appreciate that. I think that would be the more respectable decision for you to make.
Let me get onto it as soon as this is over. As soon as we're
Sure,
done.
that's top of your priority list.
As soon as you're done asking me easy questions, then I'll get straight onto it. All right.
All right. Look, let's go on to this weekend's events. Chris Eubank Jr. with a more or less punch perfect performance over Liam Smith in the rematch. Your sort of thoughts on the fight as a whole?
Yeah, look, Chris looked brilliant in there, obviously. It was a great performance, especially with the pressure of coming back off the back of the January fight. The way that fight finished, all the pressure was on Chris to go in there. And, this was really, I think for whoever lost, really, it was the end of the road in some ways. I think they were both open about it when they were talking about, in the build up. But a tremendous performance from him. He was the better man on the night, just like Liam was in January. And I suppose, a good way to end that, in that storyline. But yeah, he looked much improved on his performance in January. He looked composed. I actually think it was one of the best performances you've seen from Chris Eubank in, you know, many years, if ever, in his career.
What did you make of Liam Smith's comments about having to lose such a huge amount of weight and sort of not being right for the fight and everything?
Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult because he said, I don't want to make excuses. Like both of them said when they lost. I think there is an element of everyone was aware of Liam's struggles in the build up to that fight, hence why the fight was delayed, on multiple occasions. So, I think the reality is one of the realities with boxing is 90% of the time fighters, although albeit will say they have a great camp and will say they haven't struggled with the weight, it's natural. And that's for both sides as well. It's not just for Liam, but that will be for Chris as well. And maybe there was things in the January fight which meant Chris wasn't in his peak condition. But I think at this high level of the sport, the best person went in there and did the job. And it's good to come away and not make excuses. I think Liam's still got. Actually think there's still fights out there for Liam. I know he sort of said if I lose to Chris, then I'll retire. But I still think there's fights out there for Liam. I still thought there was fights out there for the both of them, win, lose, or draw on Saturday night. So I'm sure we'll see him back. But the best man won on the night.
Let me ask you on terms of sort of Liam itself, and he did say afterwards he doesn't want to retire. He is now a promotional free agent. Do you look at working with him? I suppose it has to be if the opportunities are right for both parties.
Yeah, 100%. That we've had a great relationship with Liam. We would have continued working with him originally, but he got an offer that we couldn't match at the time when he moved across the boxer for the Eubank fight. And yeah, for sure, in the right fights, I definitely think there's opportunity. I think there's big fights to be made, as we said that when we spoke the other day, between the likes of Kell Brook, Conor Benn, Eubank Jr., Liam Smith. There's still so many big fights to be made there. Maybe we see Eubank against Ben next, and maybe we see Beefy against Kell Brook next, and maybe we see the winners come together. I think that makes for an exciting, 6 to 9 months of British boxing.
Eubank Jr. at the time, sort of it was quite publicly known that if there was a fight that he sort of wishes he would have gone for, probably was the Ben fight. He's still flirting with that one now. We know that there was probably, well, definitely more money in that fight. But now that fight's still there. Now the dust settled and he got the win. Do you think he probably looks back happy that he did take the rematch?
Yeah, I'm sure. Look, he definitely always wanted to take the rematch, as he said. in his head, that was always the fight he wanted. At the same time, if big opportunities present themselves for any athlete in a sport, especially like boxing, and the numbers, the wolf, what they would in other fights, you have to look at them, take away the ego, and take away the side of I need to get revenge. But yeah, I'm sure he's delighted now. He's gone in there, he's done the job. He always believed he'd go back in there and do what he did on Saturday. If you listen to him throughout his interviews, over the last 7-8 months. And yeah, it sets up a huge fight against Conor Benn for sure.
There's not too much that you're going to be able to say on this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. It's all over the news today. And my mum even said to me, "Do you see someone's got arrested for having a gun at Manchester Airport?" I said, "Yeah, that was Bomac." Very surprised to see it. Weird that he got into the country with said gun in the first place. He's, we understand, being held in a cell in Manchester and is on trial on the 9th of October. So is going to be stuck in a Manchester prison cell for some time. Probably not the news that we expected this morning, but another one to tick off on the old boxing circus bingo.
Yeah, no, not the news at all. Look, it's hard to talk about because you don't actually know. None of us really know any details about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
People saying it was an armed, it was a loaded gun. People saying he had, like none of us really know all the detail, do we? So it's hard to talk about, and I don't really know my understanding of being caught with a gun at Manchester Airport and what goes on from there. I
Pretty limited.
don't know what you want me to say on it, Parsons. Look, it's obviously not ideal, is it? Let's be honest.
No, I'm only asking just because it's pressing news and people want to hear what you've got to say. I don't know what there is to say. It's the same
What
as
is it?
I have to ask.
What do you want me to say? I have no idea about the legal system and what the intricacies of being found with a gun at Manchester Airport are, apart from the fact it's probably not ideal.
Well, it's boxing news and this is a boxing interview, so I'll ask you anyway. Maybe I will quiz Sean Palmer on that at another time. Um,
Yes.
Ben Shalom made some comments. Obviously, the whole sort of UKAD and VADA testing was surfaced. Then at the weigh-in, the questions sort of were posed at him. Well, why not? He said, "Look, UKAD testing is sufficient enough," and sort of dismissed the need for further testing. What did you make of that?
Again, I don't want to. I sound like a broken record if I go into him too much, and I don't want to hurt his feelings too much because I know he'll get upset about it. But the reality of the situation is he doesn't want to pay for VADA testing, and again, I'm not a UKAD. I'm not a doping expert, right? But what I do know from being in this sport a long time, UKAD testing does not guarantee that someone's going to be tested before a fight. There's no guarantee, So he's saying they've been tested multiple times and they're clear. He doesn't know. UKAD don't tell you. So we put VADA testing in place. So there's an additional layer of testing, which is guaranteed that the fighters will get tested before the fight. He doesn't, like I don't know who UKAD are testing of our stable of fighters. I don't know when they're planning to test people, and I don't know when the results are going to come back, and I don't get the results. So Ben Shalom cannot sit there and go, they've been tested multiple times because he doesn't actually, or had the results back. He doesn't know. That's the reality of it. And look, it just comes down to they don't want to spend the money. That's all it is. All these people preach about doing great things for the sport, being, coming in, being the saviors of the sport and want to talk detrimentally about us, but they don't want to spend the money to actually improve the sport. But, we move on. I don't want to sound like a broken record. I feel like people think I'm just being negative for the sake of being negative. I'm not. I'm just responding to your questions, Charles.
Let me ask you on that topic then. Since then, some research came out regarding UKAD and testing boxers as a whole. On average, just 9% of British boxers were tested at least once by UKAD out of competition and 18% in competition in 2022. Now, we know that obviously there's more to it than that, and it's a hard situation, and UKAD, we understand, govern and overall drug testing for a lot of sports. But those figures aren't great.
No, look, the reality is it's that they don't have the resources they need to put in place stringent enough testing that could catch people. Like you say, 9% of boxers out of competition, 18% in competition. You know, I'm not sitting here saying that there's not improvements that can be made across UKAD with the board, etc. But we're just working, you know, we're putting extra measures in place to ensure the safety of the sport as much as we possibly can. So, you know, hence why we feel it's important for that additional level of testing. You know, but those numbers, you know, they don't surprise me, and that's why when I sit here and say you can't say UKAD have tested every main event fighter in the UK, it's just I don't believe it's true, and I also wouldn't know. So, you know, he just, like I said the other day, his arse went. He said it was confidential because he didn't know what to say because he can't handle the pressure when it comes down to it.
Look, sticking with Chris Eubank Jr., we know the fight. I mentioned it briefly before, but sort of going into the intricacies of it. I think firstly on Conor Benn, he said on Saturday night it's looking like that his ring return will be September the 23rd on that Orlando card. Are you able to confirm Tony Sims posted something very recently saying fight news pending?
There's still work being done. In all honesty, it's not done. What do you want me? It isn't done, Charles. It's not done, Charles.
True.
It's very. I'm telling you the truth. I don't lie to you.
Okay.
It's not done. There's still work being done. We've got discussions ongoing. But that is definitely what we would like to see happen. But not completed. Otherwise, it would be announced.
How soon would you like to get that done?
About 12 minutes, 13 minutes. That's how soon I'd like to get it done.
How
But
soon do you think you can get it done?
I don't know. Again, we put time. We say things, and then people hold us to it, and then they get angry, and then they say, "You said this." So I would rather just say we are trying our best.
Is the opponent likely to be Ivan Redkach?
TBC.
TBC. Okay, look, December is meant to be his UK return. I think I read December the 9th. I don't know about my Saturdays in December. That's a long way away. But Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. Do you want to make it happen? If you do it in December, do you do it at the O2? We know that sort of Fury Chisora went in December in a stadium very cold, but logistically, I suppose it did work. What do you go about doing for that fight?
Yeah, look, there's work to be done on that fight. It's definitely a fight that all parties are interested in making and want to make. I actually think it's probably the biggest fight in British boxing right now.
Bigger than AJ Fury?
I'd say it's up there with it, alongside it. And you know, maybe we go outside and everyone brings their blankets in December.
Is that all you have to say for me on that?
It's a massive fight. Again, I'd be stupid to say no, we're not interested. That is the fight we're all going to focus on trying to make. It's been a long time coming. Obviously, it was supposed to happen in October last year. It was big then, but I think it's tenfold now. I think the narrative and the story behind it is more than just the dads were enemies. Now there's something between the two of them. And I think it's the biggest. There's no other fight out there that is that scale.
Is it
For
bigger? Is it bigger than it once was? One, and two, how much bigger did it get with Eubank putting in the performance he did?
Yeah, I think it is bigger than it ever. I think it's bigger than it ever has been. I think him coming back, Chris coming back and avenging that loss against Liam Smith, yeah, I think does add to it as well because you know that just naturally it builds Chris's profile as well, and people may have questioned whether Chris still had it like they did after the first Liam Smith fight, and now it shows that he's come back and he belongs to be at that level still. And you know, I don't think it can get much bigger than it is. You know, it's not one of those fights that we need to wait and keep building. It's the size it is now is, you know, as big as it's going to get.
I asked Eddie last week, I think it was, regarding Filip Hrgovic and Oleksandr Usyk. He said that they were expecting that to be mandated by the IBF fairly imminently. Do you know where you're at with that?
Yeah, we're pushing on the IBF now. There's no reason that it should be delayed any further. You know, Filip's been patient. He's waited a long time. Obviously, he understood the WBA went first with their mandatory of Daniel Dubois. So now it's his turn against Oleksandr Usyk. So we're hoping that will be ordered very soon. There's nothing to wait for with Fury. It's 2 months away. Filip's waited and waited and waited for this opportunity. So yeah, we expect that to be ordered by the IBF, at any point, as they've said they would do.
Let me ask you then, sticking with the heavyweights, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder. Am I right in hearing that within the last week there have been some stumbling blocks?
No, look, there's discussions ongoing still for the fight. We're still waiting, as people are aware, and working through the Saudi side of the deal, which is obviously the key component.
Is
As
that where the stumbling blocks have come up?
I wouldn't say it's stumbling blocks. I'd say it's just continued discussions, and that's the work that needs to carry on. But like we've always said, both Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, as he's come out on multiple occasions, want that fight. But let's see how things play out. Still work to be done.
If it wasn't if it wasn't to go to Saudi Arabia, we know that you can't put up that same sort of money elsewhere. We know that sort of Vegas and it would still do a big gate, probably not so much in the UK just because of how things work and the mega fights tend to drift elsewhere. But is there still chance of that fight happening away from Saudi Arabia?
Look, I would be completely open with you. I think it makes it a bit more difficult if it's not, because of the numbers attached to that fight when it's been discussed from both sides as well. It's not just one-sided. This is from both sides. It's our job to maximize the revenue around the fight, and we'll go to work and look at the opportunities elsewhere as well if the Saudi deal doesn't come through. I still believe it's a massive fight to be made. And there will still be intent to try and make it work, if not in Saudi, elsewhere. But the numbers have to make sense, and everyone has to be sensible with it.
In terms of the schedule moving forward, we've got, I believe, Mexico. You start off again next week. Following week is Orlando. After that, September the 30th in London. Then we go to Sheffield for Wood Warrington. Then you've got a week off for KSI Fury. And then it's Catterall Linares. We know that November 25 is penciled in for Katie Taylor, Chantel Cameron. In terms of UK headliners, do you have any sort of other dates that you're provisionally looking at the minute?
November 11th is one, and then
Is that not Monaco?
no, November 4th is Monaco.
Ah.
October 28th, we're working on finalising our Mexico show, which we announced this week. Same with November 4th, which we announced this week, as with the full undercard as well. November 11th then is a UK show. We're just working through the details of, hopefully get that announced later this week as well for Newcastle. 18th, we've announced Diego Pacheco. November 25th, we've announced Cameron against Taylor. And then December 9th, we got something big we're working through. December 2nd or 23rd could be a UK show. December 16th is Edwards against Jesse Rodriguez. So stacked schedule. I think we've got one weekend off. Our plan is to have one weekend off between now and Christmas, which is October 14th, which DAZN obviously have the big KSI Tommy Fury fight, as you said. So yeah, stacked schedule to the end of the year, and then already working on what January, February, March looks like.
I caught up with Joe Markowski at the back end of last week. He's really happy with how everything's coming together in terms of the schedule for the back end of the year. I suppose the situation with DAZN is just keep amping it up and sort of providing through the years. You've now got that new deal out in the States as well, which was announced back in New Orleans.
Yeah, 100%. And look, the key for us as well is, building a long-term schedule. And I think we've shown that with the announcements we've made all the way through to December, and they were made in, sort of early August. And that's the key with DAZN, is to build out that long-term schedule. Got a lot of annual subscribers, and that's our focus now. And that's why we're already working into 2024 to build those big fights up. So things are going really well. They're in a good place. DAZN are very happy, and as always, there's big fights, more big fights that can be delivered.
Lastly, from me, Fabio Wardley. What is the situation here? We sort of understood, reading between the lines from little bits that we'd heard, that he was negotiating with Queensberry for that David Adelaide fight. As of today, he put out a tweet sort of hinting at some frustrations. He said, "Oh, I'm retired." Have you had any conversation with him and his team? Is there a chance his next fight could be on a Matchroom show? Eddie said that he wants him to sort of sign a multi-fight deal. if he does remain with Matchroom. What's the situation here on your side?
Yeah, look, we believe in Fabio Wardley. We want to work with him long term. If there's a one fight plan there to do the Adelaide fight, let's see if that means he goes away and goes and gets a big win, gets a big payday. I believe that Fabio, we've had a great relationship and built a strong relationship over the years. So I believe we'll continue working with him at some point. There's obviously the purse bids are due next week for the Adelaide fight. They were put back a month. So it'll be next Wednesday at the British Boxing Board Control meeting. So we'll see what happens there. I definitely believe it's his intention to do that fight. But let's see. Maybe we'll get involved in the bids next week.
Frank, I'm going to let you go. It looks like you're being absolutely blinded. I don't know how I'm going to get a thumbnail out of this, but we will
Good,
do
because you picked dodgy thumbnails. So I
it.
thought I'd do this. And
Yeah, it's going to be even dodgier. Frank, final message.
final message. Enjoy Spain, Parsons.
Thanks, mate. Very, very
We're having a
attentive.
lot of holidays. I see you're having a lot of holidays, nearly as many as me.
Nearly as many as you. We don't all get to do grid walks in the F1. Frank Smith, thank you very much for your time.